Hello everybody, it's Murray here. On today's painting tutorial we're going to paint this fantastic oil painting of a realistic seascape of some ocean waves, where I'm going to teach you how to paint realistic water really easily, step by step together. I'm going to show you what colours I use. I'm going to list them in the video description below the video, so if you miss them, they are titanium white, burnt sienna, cad red, viridian hue, which is a type of green, cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, Payne's grey, and I also use liquid, which I'll go on about throughout the video. The brushes that I used are a flat-headed brush, which is really good for straight lines and painting waves. I've got a big round-headed brush, which is really good for blocking in my painting and also blending. You can use a blend brush, like I have a fan brush here, which is, look, it's got really lovely soft bristles, but I personally love to blend my oils using a DIY or a hardware brush that you get in a shop for painting things like fences in your house. I use a really big one like this. One little tip, what I would say is ruffle up the bristles if you buy them straight out of the packet, because sometimes they can shred and you don't want that on your canvas. So just if you do buy brushes, just give them a bit of a beating before you try to use them. So we've got a small selection of just smaller brushes which are really good for fine detail, just the same brushes as the big ones but just smaller versions. And then this brush here, this really cool brush, is called a liner brush, which is awesome for painting fine detail. So when we do things like the ripples and the bubbles on our water, and if you'd like, you can always pause the video now and use this painting as a reference, and then you can have it next to you while you're watching the video if you find that easier. So I got my iPad with my lovely pink cover because it's my daughter's and I painted in acrylic paint my outline. Now the reason I painted with acrylic paints is because they dry incredibly quick. So all I'm doing, I'm using ultramarine blue and I'm just blocking in where I want my large ocean waves and ripples to be. And I'm using this really nice dark blue to put in kind of where I want the shadows, because I find it's much easier for me to work if I've got an outline already drawn. And then if I slow the video now, all we want to do is we want to have big ripples at the bottom of the painting, big waves, and as we get to the top we're going to have more flatter, thinner ocean waves to make it look like they're going out into the distance and fading into the sky. So if you can see, look, the waves in the distance are barely noticeable. They're really thin, they're just flat lines basically, but the ones at the bottom are really big, and I'm just spending 2 minutes just going around them and just smoothing them up. And then what I do is I dry my work with a hairdryer so it's nice and dry, and then I can paint oils straight over the top. So look, we've got really big ripples at the bottom, sort of medium ones, and as they go up to the top they get really close together and you barely notice them. So this will create perspective in your work and make it look hyper realistic, as I say, without doing much. So I always do it with acrylic paints and then I dry it. Now I have my oil paints set out here. I've got some viridian green, some ultramarine blue, I've got some burnt sienna and some cad red. I've got 2 piles of liquid because I want to make my paint really thin and easily to spread. So I've got my ultramarine blue and I've got my viridian green, and this is going to create a awesome ocean dark color. Look at that. That is so dark and moody. It looks really cool. And then I'm going to get the same ultramarine blue, and then by accident I only wanted a little bit of burnt sienna. I'm just going to add some white. I put way too much burnt sienna in my mix, but I wanted to leave this in the video just to show you if you make a mistake you can always rescue it and not to panic. So you only want a dot of burnt sienna, but I put a big lump on. Look at this. And I turned my lovely blue into a brown by accident, because burnt sienna, when you add it to blue, and then I ran out of blue, look, so I had to get some more. So burnt sienna, when you add it to blue, it turns it grey, and we're trying to create a mid-tone that we're going to use for the middle of our ocean. So not to panic, look, I put more blue in and turned it more grey again. I just wasted a lot of burnt sienna. And I kind of did the same look. I put way too much red. Because all we want to do, we want to mix blue, white. So look, I had to put more blue in. So don't fret. You can always mix your colours and change them back. But what we want really is blue, white, a little bit of the viridian green, a dot of burnt sienna and a dot of cad red. Just don't be over generous like I did. And we should, now that I've mixed it all together, create a greeny blue grey, like a bluey grey. And you can always lighten it with white. So look, don't worry, you can always mix up colours. Colour mixing is the hardest thing in a tutorial, I think. So all I'm doing is getting the dark colour, and my acrylic paint is totally dry. And all I'm going to do is the big block shapes that I've coloured in ultramarine, I'm just going to cover over with this mixture of ultramarine blue and viridian. And the great thing is because it's already mixed in with my palette knife with all that lovely liquid, the paint's really, really thin, look, and I can just block it in really, really quickly. It looks nice and dark. Oil paints always look 10 times more realistic than acrylics. So I can just block in all these dark shadows. And then if I slow the video back down, because my brush has got the paint on it, look, I can just go round all the other ripples. And I can just spread that lovely colour. It's kind of like a turquoisey blue, because it's got lots of that viridian green into it. And I can just make everything look nice and smooth, because water, one of the key things to making it look realistic is making it look smooth. So look, if I create like a hum going around each shadow, don't worry if it's scruffy, we can neaten everything out. But if I create this sort of hum, it kind of creates the illusion of ripples. Now, we're going to have the light shining from the top of the painting downwards. So these waves right at the bottom of my painting are going to be kind of in the shade and dark. So look, I can colour this, all this area in this colour. And the great thing is because the paint had lots of that liquid in it, it's really, really thin. It's really easy to glide onto your canvas. Look, just colour in. And all I'm using is that big round-headed brush that you saw at the beginning of the tutorial, because I find it really, really smooth, and because it's so chunky, it's so easy to fill in big areas. So I've got this dark colour, and then kind of in the middle, I want to have some of this sort of middle colour that we're going to use our other colour we mixed. So what I want to do is I want to have the bottom of the painting nice and dark, but I can still outline these ripples, look. But I want to kind of leave gaps for the other colour, because when we place that on, we can trick people's eyes and make it look really realistic. So all I'm doing, look, I'm just letting that paint run out. I've got my big clean house brush, and then all I'm going to do, I'm going to use it to blend. Look, so I'm just going to barely touch the canvas, and I'm just going to smooth out that paint. Look, I'm just smoothing it out. Nice and relaxed. Nice and chilled. And what it's going to do is just going to soften all my painting. And again, make it look a little bit out of focus and look a bit more realistic. So I'm just softly blending all the sort of areas together. Really, really gently. Look at that. Easy peasy. And then this colour that we mixed up, this bluey grey, look, we're going to kind of use in the middle. So all I'm going to do is put it in the gaps in this sort of middle area. And then what it should do is create a divide between the really deep dark water that's in the shade at the bottom of the painting. And then when we have the really light sky, that looks like your waves are fading out at the distance, which we'll do in a minute, this mid-tone will kind of bridge the two areas together. So we don't want to have a really, really dark colour jump to a really bright colour. So we're going to use this grey blue, kind of like a buffer in the middle, to sort of join the two areas together. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to add some white and cerulean blue to my mix. So lots of white and cerulean blue. Look, and I'm just going to turn it more pastel, and I'm just mixing the two shades together. Look, I'm just bridging the two areas together. So I'm meeting in the middle. And all I'm going to do is at the top, I'm just going to glaze over this paint. But again, because we've got liquid in the mix, all this paint is very thin. So it's very easy to spread all over the canvas. It just glides, it's very wet. And the great thing about using thin oil paint at the beginning while you're blocking in your painting, is then later on when we add things over the top and we can use thicker paint, as in with no liquid in it, it will bind and stick to it. So by using the liquid at the beginning, it's a way of blocking everything in, but also creating a nice thin coat of paint. So there we go. I'm just going over it a little bit, just trying to blend it. I'm just trying to make the transitions from one color to another a bit more seamless, so there's not so much of a jump, because we don't want to have big jumps where you notice the color change. We want to kind of make it look really nice and seamless. So this painting took me about an hour and a half in real time, and we've condensed it down. So look, we've got this nice area, and we're going to paint the sky now. So we're going to get cerulean blue and white. So just cerulean blue and white to make a really pastel sky. And then if you can put a dot, not like my mixing before, of burnt sienna and a dot of red, that kind of nullifies the colour, just makes it look more earthy and sucks a bit of the vibrancy out. And then again, we're going to put loads of liquid into the mix to make it nice and watery and easy to spread, nice and thin. And then once you've mixed up your colour, all I want you to do is just paint the top third of your canvas and block in that sky. So take your time. I've sped up the footage just because it's nothing technical. I'm just blocking in a big chunk of the painting with one solid colour. I like to paint my edges on my canvas because then if you don't frame it necessarily, all the colours match and it makes your canvas look 3D. And then if I put the speed back down, look, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to then blend these two areas together, just like we did at the bottom, just so again the transitions from one colour to another is totally seamless. Now excuse the light if it keeps going really bright and then really dark. I was working in my lovely art studio, and unfortunately it's a really cloudy day, and every time a cloud or someone would go past, it would look really bright and then really dark. So excuse the light if it changes on the painting itself. And then all I'm going to do, look, I'm just going to get my big brush again, and now we've got all these areas kind of blocked in. I can then just sort of blend it over the top. So I'm barely touching the canvas. Now we've got the sky in. I can just go over the sky. I'm taking out any brush marks, making everything look smooth. Let's just adjust the easel so we can get to the top. So as I say, just take your time. You don't have to go as fast as this video. Just go at your own speed. So there we go, look, so we've got this lovely blocked in painting. We've kind of got a rule of 3 where we've got the mid tones, the dark tones and the light tones. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to get my same mix that I had before, and I'm just going to rework my shadows. So it's a bit repetitive, but it kind of works. So I'm just going to paint over them again, and I'm going to do the same trick that we did before. But what I'm going to do, look, I'm going to load up my brush with a bit more paint. And I'm going to kind of go around the edges and make everything look a bit darker. This was my first oil painting in about 2 years. Now there are a playlist of oil paintings but we mainly do acrylic paintings on the tutorial just because they're easier. But oils are, I think, better because they look 10 times more realistic, and they're just a little bit harder, but like anything, you get more reward for doing something hard. So there are other tutorials on oils if you want to binge, if you go to the playlist section on the channel. But for my first painting in 2 years, I'm really happy with how it came out. It came out really good. So all I'm doing, look, I'm just spreading this colour, making it nice and dark here at the bottom. So let's just blend all this area, because this area is going to be nice and in the shade, away from the sun. And also at the bottom, when it's eventually dry, I want to sign it down the bottom. So I want it nice and dark so my signature can show up. So I'm just going to make all this area a lot darker, more moody. I can even put in some ripples in the middle. And I can kind of join areas together. So think of waves, they have sort of like scoop shapes in the water. And then they kind of have this sort of like dark sort of glow around them. So this hum sort of thing. So they have these scoops. So we can kind of use this colour to create this aspect and kind of link areas together. So everything is starting to look more 3D because we're linking areas together. We're smoothing everything out. We're trying to take out all the sort of brush marks and things. We can darken up this area. And what, if you've noticed, is at the beginning I was kind of using like a reference photo with my iPad. Now I'm not, because I kind of paint so many seascapes. I kind of know how to do it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a little bit of Payne's Grey to my ultramarine blue in Viridian to make it even darker. So Payne's Grey, not black. Payne's Grey is a very dark grey, but it's more earthy. And this will make your blue look much darker. So I can make these shadows look even more harsh by using a darker tone. So as I was saying, at the beginning of the tutorial I was using a reference photo, but as I go along I kind of are just trying to link areas together, and I'm kind of doing it intuitively, where I'm noticing where I'm creating these ripples, where I can link areas together. And also sometimes a reference photo isn't exact, and sometimes you can make your painting, like I want these waves look a lot darker in the photo, they're not as dark. So you can always change things, nothing's written in stone, you don't have to do everything a certain way. Do whatever feels comfortable to you. Now all I would like you to do is mix some of the shadow colour, that dark ultramarine and Viridian, with some of the sky colour. So all we're going to do, we're going to take the shadow colour, actually sorry, it's got a tiny bit of Payne's Grey as well in it, and some sky colour, and all we're going to do, look, we're going to mix them together and it should create, look, a sort of pastel dark colour. And these we're going to use, I'm using a flat headed brush to create little scoops, and these are going to be the waves that look quite far away into the distance. And the reason we're using a pastel blue is because that pushes those waves to look like they're far off into the distance. Now excuse the light, I think a cloud had gone away and the sun was shining. But all I'm doing, look, I'm just creating lines with my flat brush and some scoops. Once the cloud comes back we'll find out. And I just want them nice and soft. You can have the odd harsh one because you do get odd harsh ripples, but we kind of want them to look like they're fading off into the distance, and that's why we're using this pastel colour. So there we go, you can see it now the cloud is gone. And then all I'm doing, look, rinse and repeat. As I say, it's very repetitive, but do you know your brain loves repetitive things? So think of like when you drive, you can do it on autopilot because you've done it so many times. Well, when you first learn a new skill, it seems weird and clunky. It's because you haven't got any neurons and neural pathways to know how to do it. So if you find anything difficult at first, that's totally normal. But the more and more you do something and you practice it, guess what? You'll program yourself. So I paint all the time, so that's why I'm so good. So a little trick for you. So let's get some more ultramarine blue, and let's just add a little bit more viridian to it to make it a bit more turquoise. And let's just make this area a little bit more turquoise. So the great thing is, look, as I say to you, you can always change things while you're going along. You can sort of sense areas. So I want to make this a little bit more turquoisey blue, because imagine you were sitting on a boat just looking out into the ocean. Wouldn't that be nice? Kind of the colours next to you be quite bright, and as they fade off into the distance they would look quite muted, because obviously it's blending with the sky. So I can add more colour at the bottom. So by adding blue and green and white, I can make it more turquoisey at the bottom, and then as we go up it's more greyish, so it looks like it's fading off into the distance. Take your time, relax. Go really nice and slow, enjoy it. If you find that you have brush marks, look, just smooth them out. And then all we're going to do, we're just going to add some white, and we're just going to bring that mixture up and just gently blend it into the previous colour, because it's got a hint of that sort of turquoise again, so there's not so much of a jump. So we're just making everything look really natural. So if I've changed something at the bottom, I just want to change it slightly in the middle, just so it all blends together. There we go, easy. So look, if the light's coming down, it's gonna kind of make this mid area look really nice. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get a flat-headed brush, and I'm going to mix my dark shadow tone, and I'm going to put in some of these ripples a lot harsher. And because I've got this sharp flat brush, it's really easy for me to then push onto the canvas. I haven't got as much liquid in my paint, so the areas like this middle here, it's got loads of liquid already on the canvas. So look, if I go over the top and my paint's a bit thicker, it easily sticks on the canvas. But you will get areas like here where it kind of mixes together. That's totally normal. Sometimes with oils it just does that. You have to do it a few times. Look, you just have to get more paint and go over it again. So if you find it's all mixing together, just thicken up your paint, have less liquid, and just go over your lines. But using a flat-headed brush, honestly, for painting waves, like there's tons of acrylic painting tutorials where I'm always using flat-headed brushes. It's so much easier to get sharp lines, so you can make these sort of little triangles and things. And again, look, if it just the paint runs out and it kind of fades off into the distance, that's kind of what we want. But I can really get more paint, and I can really darken these areas, turn them into ripples, harsh shadows. But as I was saying to you, there's plenty of playlists now on the channel. I've kind of been really fixing up the channel, and it's got loads of different sections now. So there's whole sections on how to paint water, there's how to paint sunsets, there's how to paint landscapes, so you can go and binge away. So look, this is Payne's Grey. We're going to add quite a lot now to our Viridian and Ultramarine Blue. So, and I've got no liquid now in my paint at all, and I'm putting on thick paint. So what I'm going to do is just in some areas I'm going to make really harsh shadows. And the great thing is this thick paint, I can put a big lump of it, and then I can smooth it out. But I can even do this, look, I can even create really harsh shadows and ripples. So sometimes in water you get these lovely sort of dark circles and grooves in the water. So I can kind of put these big chunks of dark in now, There's no liquid, so look, it goes over the top really easily because the paint's so thick. So that's why I was saying it's, most people would be like, what's liquid and why should I use it? Well, if you used it at the beginning and all your paint's nice and thin, this bit is so much easier. And I like to paint wet on wet, which means you basically do the painting in one sitting. It's a lot harder, but I'm really impatient. So I find it better because I'm the sort of person who's a bit of a perfectionist, and I find if there's something wrong with my painting, I can't wait a few days to fix it. It drives me crazy. So I find if I don't fix it there and there, I will go nuts, which is not necessarily a good thing. So look, all I'm doing is putting in these harsh shadows and a few ripples. But sometimes it's best to go away from your painting, but sometimes I don't take my own advice. Who does? So look, and all I'm doing now, I can spread that just like we did with this lighter colour, and I can even get a flat brush and I can put some of these harsh ripples that I was just mentioning here and there, just so it looks like an odd one is going against the shade. Look, just to create the illusion of these waves sort of fading out. And the great thing is the blade of the brush is so thin, it's like painting with like a ruler. It's like a blade, it's kind of really thin. So we just want some odd ones, and look, the paint's just running out. I don't want too many really dark ones. You can have an odd one. But you can also use this, look, to create ripples. So it's up to you. You can either use the flat brush or you can use a smaller brush. And then again, look, because we've done something new, we have to go back to our big brush and smooth it all out. So just think, every time you do something new, reach for the big brush and smooth it out. Smooth it out. That could be a little t-shirt we wear. We're the Smooth It Out crew. So that's what I'm saying to you. Take your time. Don't rush. Look at this. It's starting to look really cool now. So let's take some of the sky colour and a clean brush. So don't try to use the same brush because it's just all mucky. Get a completely clean brush. And we're going to get some of that white and cerulean blue. Do you remember it's got a hint of burnt sienna and a hint of a dot of cad red. And all we're going to do with our flat brush, we're going to create a shimmer coming from the left to the right, kind of coming diagonally down. And it's going to look like a glistening effect of light from the sky shining down onto your ocean waves. So one of the ways we can make our water look 3D and make our ocean water look hyper realistic is by putting these little things on, but there's nothing to be scared about. All we're doing, look, we're just using a lighter colour, and then we're just gently going to blend it into our previous colours. And again, there's no liquid in my paint, so I can just put it on the top, just like we did with a shadow. We're doing a highlight, and then we can just blend it from the middle outwards. So if you think you want to leave the harshest sort of colour in the middle for that bright highlight, and then sort of smooth it out as you move left and right from the middle. And we can go around the shape of our waves, and then it kind of looks like the light is flowing. If you think water is always moving, so by going round the shape of our waves, look, I'm going with the wave, I can kind of make it look like it's moving, sort of flowing. Looks effortless. So look, that looks really cool. And again, look, we're going to smooth it out. Smooth it out, baby. I'm going to get a t-shirt made. I'm going to get a t-shirt for the next oil paint. That could be a little thing. So there we go. Just smoothing it out. And sometimes, look, it takes it away. It makes it look like you hadn't done it. But you just be patient. We can go around it. Now, this is the liner brush. Do you remember I mentioned right at the beginning? It's a really elongated, fine detail brush. It is fantastic for doing really spindly fine detail. So look, I can create ripples, and it's really, really long, so I'm away from the painting. If you can see, I've got paint all over my fingers, and the problem with oils is they're really, really messy. Don't go around your house touching things because you'll stain everything. Try to wear scruffy clothes as well, because oils tend to be really messy. I like to have loads of baby wipes next to me and a bin bag, so I can just clean myself and throw things in the bin bag without going around my house touching things or sitting on things, and then my wife absolutely killing me because I've got paint on her furniture or on things. And again, look, we're going to smooth it out. So even our ripples that we've just put in. But these brushes, I'm telling you, none of them are expensive. This brush probably cost £1 or $1. My liner brush cost £1 or $1. You don't have to have expensive things. It's more, I keep trying to explain to you, every success in life is to do with your attitude, not what you have. So look, all I'm doing, I'm just rinsing and repeating. Some of these bubbles and some of these ripples, look, I can now just use my fine brush and then swap to my big brush. And even some of these little divots, I can outline them to make them look 3D. So now we've got all these shapes. Look, I can just follow the shapes and then smooth it out. And it's going to start looking really, really realistic really, really quickly. And the great thing is once we know how to do this, and I keep saying to you, and you start to do it over and over again. Oh, yes, I've got to say this. Thank you to everyone, because we just hit 30,000 subscribers literally during the week. And I really, really like to thank everyone, because it's all thanks to you guys. All the support, all the likes, all the lovely comments. I get loads of DMs on my social medias, like supporting the channel. Really, really positive. Thank you so much. The more you like the videos, the more you share the videos, the more you help other people find them. In the scheme of things, we're still quite a small channel, even though I like to think our product is bloody good. Because we are a small channel, we still are quite hard to find here on the YouTube. So just by liking the videos and sharing them and just writing comments on each video, do you know, that really, really helps, because what you're doing is you're saying to the algorithm, I've had a positive experience, thank you very much, this is really, really good, I liked it. And then it'll show the video to more artists who can find it. So thank you everyone, because you're the guys making the channel. And especially in the world at the moment, there's so much negativity, and I'm trying to make a positive place that is totally free, that you can just learn and binge, and meeting people from all around the world is a really, really nice thing. And a bit like this ocean, even though there's tons and tons of different waves, all have different things going on, it's one ocean. So meeting people and talking to them, everyone's going through stuff, everyone has their problems and stuff. So trying to help one another and do good things to one another, and remember that is a nice thing, especially in today's world. So look, all we're doing is we're rinsing and repeating. We're creating our lovely shapes. We're going over them with our big brush. And as I say, the great thing about this is once you know how to do it, we can do all different color versions, and we can start putting this into different scenes. So I'm going to do some reflection videos. I'm going to do some ones with rocks. We're going to do shallow water, tropical see-through water, with all different things. We did a sunset one with the acrylic tutorial the other day, which went really, really, did well. Everyone loved. So if you have any ideas for videos, as I say, you can always put them in the comments below. I'm very happy to try to make tutorials for you guys on what you want. So that is looking awesome. So what we're going to do, look, we're going to just go over our highlights. I've just added a little bit more white to my cerulean blue and my dot of burnt sienna and my dot of red. So that's sky colour. I've just added more white. And I'm being a bit naughty here. Look, I'm using my finger because I'm lazy and I shouldn't really be doing that. If you're painting in oils, you should really wear gloves because some of the stuff in them is not particularly good for your skin. But I'm a bit lazy, so I've just used my finger. Now I've got a blue finger. And then all I'm going to do, while I've got that colour, I'm just going to kind of follow the waves again. And I'm just trying to make softer highlights just on areas again so it looks more natural. If you think of all water is very feminine and curvy, we want everything to flow, look really nice. And then brush it again because I've done something different. We're going to smooth it out. And the great thing is, look, if you don't like something, you can always take some of the background colour and the thicker paint, look, and change the shape of things. So I didn't like that wave, so I just got my flat brush and just changed it. So you can always go over things. Just be careful when you're going over things that you don't overwork it and you go too far. Now we're going to take that white sky colour and we're going to create little circles, and now we're going to paint the water sparkles. So if anyone's been watching the acrylic painting tutorials with water sparkles, what we tend to do is we put the glow on first and then we put the sparkles. So by having a bit of cerulean blue in this sky colour and some white, it's very pastel, but it's not quite pure white. So we put the glow on first and then we use pure white over the top. And then rather than blending it out, all I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the paint kind of upwards. Look, I'm just going to kind of, you can't see because my hand. But all I'm doing, look, if you see the brush, it's kind of wiggling upwards. And I'm going to try to create the illusion of sparkles. So I'm pushing the paint upwards to drag it upwards, and then I can smooth it out. And what that should do is it kind of creates like a cross shape. So look, I'm going to put the dot on first. So again, there's no liquid in this paint. It's thick paint. I've got a little round-headed brush, and I'm pushing quite hard against the canvas to create these splodges. If you find your splodge doesn't look very cool, just thicken up the paint, just get more paint on your brush. And again, try to follow the shape of the waves. I tend to put all these sort of splodges on the lighter side. I don't put them, look, I don't put them on the shadows. And then look, I pull the paint up and then I smooth it out. So I push it up and then I smooth it out. And what that should do is that upward motion should drag the paint upwards to make it look like it's like a star sort of shape, like it's glowing. And then when you're happy with all your blobs and you've got them all in the kind of right position where you want, then you can get a clean brush and just some pure white and put a big dollop in each bit of your pastel blue. So look, put a big dollop in the middle and then go around each sparkle and just rinse and repeat. Oh no, sorry about the light. In London, it's really, really sunny and then it's torrential rain. There's nothing in between. It's like really boiling hot and sunny, and then it's like torrential downfalls. So unfortunately, all the clouds were going back and forth, back and forth. 1 minute you leave in shorts, next minute you need an umbrella. You just don't know what to wear. So look, all I'm doing, I'm putting big dollops of white in between these sparkles. And then again, look, I'm just going to drag the paint up and down just to smooth them, to make them look softer and more hyper realistic. And like I keep saying to you with all these tutorials, if you think the painting looks good in the video, it looks much better in real life, because obviously I'm terrible at lighting and editing and all these bits. I'm an artist. I'm not really good at all these things. And I'm trying to be. They're getting better, But what I'm trying to say to you, if you learn these basics, even at home, you can produce a phenomenal painting with not much effort. So look, and then look, now you can see it. Look, I'm just pulling it upwards, look, and that should, and even a little bit downwards, and that should create the illusion of like a cross sort of shape. And I think she's finished. So she's still wet, so I can't sign her. That's the bummer with oil paints. So we've got the big ripples at the bottom. We've got the medium ripples in the middle. We've got our darkest shadows and colours at the bottom. And then we've got this grey sort of mid-tone that sort of links this area. And the ripples get smaller. You've learnt to fade off into the distance, where we use pastel colours to make them look far, far away. You've learnt how to smooth it out and how to blend. You've learned how to do ripples and ocean waves and paint this gorgeous seascape in oil paints. And then you've learned how to do the sparkles over the top and how to create that illusion. So I hope you've enjoyed this oil painting tutorial on how to paint ocean waves, this gorgeous seascape. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and any ideas for videos, put them in the comments below. I wish you all a lovely week ahead and a nice weekend, and happy painting everyone. Take care, enjoy yourself, see you soon, bye.